All right, thank you for joining us on this very special edition of ABC24 Plus. We are diving deeper into a case that is capturing the city and parts of the nation as well. We're talking about a man who was wrongfully convicted who's going to eventually be heading home. You see it behind us. Andrew Hayes is the man we're talking about. So this is a major development here in Memphis, Shelby County area. In fact, yesterday, District Attorney Steve Mulroy came out and announced that he would not be pursuing anything against this, that he would be allowing this wrongful conviction and this overturn, this change to happen. So a huge piece of news for a man who spent nearly 2 decades in custody at this point. Joined now by some very special people who are going to help tell the story. This is their story to tell from beginning to end, and we want to make sure that we tell that story to you. So sitting next to me is Stephanie Tinsley, who runs a podcast. Please tell the people the name of your podcast.
The podcast is called Everything They Missed, and it's out now, episodes 1 through 10.
And sitting next to Stephanie is Andrew Hayes' son, Tamarian Jefferson. Please say hello to the people, Tamarian.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Yeah, you're going to get to hear from him even more as he gets to explain to you how he feels now that changes are coming in his family. Let's get started, though, at the very beginning, if we could do that. Stephanie, let's talk about what made you even start to look at this case. Thousands of cases, thousands of potential wrongful convictions. Yeah. What made this one hit home for you?
You know, I think part of it, I don't believe in coincidences. Mm-hmm. And I think particularly this story needed somebody like me, whether it's media, whether it's a podcast, or whether it's a writer, because Andrew's legal opportunities had almost run out. When I approached Jason Gishner, who's Andrew's lawyer at the Tennessee Innocence Project, he told me about a handful of cases, but this one really stuck out to him. And the murder happened in 2007. A man named Danny Harris was murdered. He had been left for dead for 2 months. And so when they found him, within 2 days, they wrapped up the case and had Andrew Hayes' confession and behind bars. When it was laid out to me, there were several pieces that bothered me. The first one was Andrew was 24 years old. He's had a 62 IQ. And for those that don't realize, that's about comparable to a third grade IQ level. Andrew had never been in trouble with the police before, so he didn't realize when you offer to help the police, if you don't have experience, you could come across, instead of being helpful, as nervous. Mm-hmm. Or if you're going back and forth on a story, it could appear that you're lying. After a 27-hour interrogation, Andrew was delirious. His interrogation was not recorded, although they had recording capabilities at 201. They didn't record his 27-hour interrogation. And by the end of that process, he was pretty much just saying, "What do you want me to say?" And they said, "Tell us that you killed Danny Harris." And he did, thinking it would be sorted out.
You hear that so often, right? That after really long interrogations, the people just say, "What do you want me to say?"
Right.
At what point did you start to realize that Andrew was not guilty of this murder?
Well, the Innocence Project took him on as a client in 2023, and they had done a meticulous job finding evidence that was not presented at the original trial. Mm-hmm. So they had cell phone data. They had affidavits from family members, Sarah Lucas's family members, saying, "Hey, wait a minute, you let her go, but she's been bragging about the murder for 18 years. They had other pieces of evidence that pointed toward this woman, Sarah Lucas, and away from Andrew. And just by looking at the evidence alone, it was clear Andrew didn't even know Danny Harris. He had never met the man, never been out to Cordova, didn't even know him. And when all of that added up, I went to visit him in prison because I needed to look him in the eyes and just get the vibe from him myself. After that conversation, I knew he was an innocent man.
And so as you're going through the information and the testimony and the evidence, was there something in particular that stuck out to you and said, this just ding, 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 the bells are just going way off for me on this one?
Yes, Tammy Vance. So there were two defendants in the case of Danny Harris, Tammy Vance and Andrew. Tammy Vance, Andrew's co-defendant, at Andrew's trial said, wait a minute, Andrew didn't do it. My daughter Sarah did it. So the woman is testifying in Andrew's trial, it's not Andrew, it's my daughter Sarah. And Tammy took a life sentence, didn't even go to trial because she just wanted everything to be over. And unfortunately, the jury couldn't get over the fact that Andrew had confessed. So even it's Tammy sitting there saying, it's my daughter, it's not him. The 12 jury members are thinking, yeah, but he said it was.
Yes. Yeah, and so, I mean, that's a tough situation, obviously, a very difficult situation. So after you've gone through that and you see some of that evidence and you this piece in particular, what did you do next? As soon as you read that and you read that information, what was your next step? What did you think, man, I've got to do this?
So I knew that I had to do a podcast about it, and I knew that it had to be a long form story. So my podcast is called Everything They Miss, and it's 10 episodes. And I knew that I wasn't a journalist, I wasn't a reporter, but I had a voice, and I could get here and I could get to know these families. And I just decided I'm going to go for this, and I'm going to put it out there. And you had mentioned at the top of the show that it's made local news. I did an interview with an Australian news source last week. I mean, this story is in Australia, it's in London, it's everywhere. So it's a big deal, and I think that it just goes to show when the media picks something up, things can happen. Pressure.
How many times did you approach somebody and say, hey, I've got something here that you need to hear? Like, how many times did you have to approach officials or attorneys or district attorneys or whoever to say, please listen to me about this?
Yeah. So the Innocence Project had put together a petition of quorum nobis, and that's what they had filed in 2023 on behalf of Andrew. And they had made their way through the court system. So I was just following in the background of that. But it wasn't until the new evidence was uncovered that I took that to the DA, along with the victim's son. And what that new evidence was is the Sarah actually confessing to participating in the murder and saying the words, Andrew was never there. So we took that evidence to the DA, and that was really the first time that I had the opportunity for someone to tell me no. Throughout this last year of me putting the story together, multiple people told me no one's going to care.
Yeah.
So I had multiple times to quit, to get my feelings hurt, to give up. Andrew's original attorney, was the first one to look me in the eye after his interview and say, nobody cares. What are you doing? This is Memphis.
Yeah.
No one cares. There's a black man in prison. No one cares. Leave it alone. And I was told that by multiple people. But when we took this new evidence to the DA, Steve Mulroy took it very seriously.
Good.
The Justice Review Unit, Lorna McCluskey, took it very seriously. And that's why we're here today with this in the background. I never thought we would be here.
So we kind of touched on it, but didn't really drop the bombshell that we can drop, which is what that new evidence is. Steve Mulroy has come out and said there is new evidence that he can't discuss for legal reasons, but this is the evidence that you brought to him. Can you tell the people what you're talking about?
Yeah, so the new evidence that Steve Mulroy was talking about yesterday was uncovered by the victim's own son. And Danny Harris is the victim. He has 4 sons, and his youngest son had always been bothered by the fact that he thought this woman, Sarah Lucas, also had something to do with his father's murder. When he met me and learned about my podcast and knew that I was tracking down Sarah, he asked if he could come along for the ride. Yeah. And he was able to befriend Sarah in the strangest of circumstances. It's been 18 years. She was probably living with a lot of guilt. She was estranged from her current husband, living alone, raising a child on her own, probably just was desperate to talk to somebody. Yeah. And when Stephen reached out, he started recording every phone call. And you can hear the progression, and that's what the second half of my show is about. You can hear, he handed all the recordings over to me. So you can hear the first phone call he has with Sarah. And he just does an amazing job befriending her, gaining trust, and doing the same interrogation techniques that was used on Andrew. Lies. They've got your DNA. They've got eyewitnesses. These are the same things they told Andrew. We know you were there. We know you did it. Stephen said this enough to Sarah that she thought, holy crap, after all this time, they probably do.
Yeah.
And she ended up confessing. And you can hear that on episode 10. Don't skip ahead and only listen to episode 10. But throughout, you can just hear the progression of this woman who finally confesses, and that's what Mulroy is talking about yesterday. And that's what they'll present. That's the new evidence, and that's what saved the day.
How did you feel, Tamarian, when you got the call or the knock on the door and she said, we've done it, we've got it?
I couldn't do nothing but cry because it was an emotional feeling. After so long, my father is finally going to be free. So, I was emotional.
So many people live in situations where they don't get to be together as a family. And before the show, we were talking, and you said, you guys told me that you were with him the day he got picked up and went to 201 Poplar, but you hadn't really been with him hardly at all since then. Can you talk a little bit about how often you've actually gotten to see or talk to your father over these last 18 years?
It's been rocky. Because, at first I was blaming my father because of the story that I heard. But once I got old enough to actually sit down myself and I Googled the case, the trial. So when I read it and, my aunties and uncles and my grandma always told me my dad was, innocent.
Yeah.
So when Miss Stephanie came along, and she talked to me, and I finally went to see my father. And he looked me in my eyes and told me he was innocent. I knew right then my father was innocent.
How'd that make you feel?
Made me feel like a baby again.
Yeah.
How excited are you to finally get to grab him, hug him?
Words can't explain it.
The family's here too, and they're off camera right now, but I'm sure they all feel the same way. If he gets to see this before he gets home, what do you want to say to him? What do you want him to know right now?
I'm waiting on him. I'm just ready for this son and father duo.
Good
so
for
I'm
you.
waiting on him.
Good for you. Now, this has taken a long time. How long from start to finish to where we're at now? How long have you been working on this?
So I started working on it August of 2024. And things really started moving September of 2025 is when we got Sarah's confession. But I've been writing and producing the podcast since August of 24.
What have you seen, witnessed, just from your perspective, somebody who started on the outside, right, and has kind of worked their way through this judicial process? You always hear about the justice system having problems and people being wrongfully convicted and, confessions that shouldn't be counted as confessions, all these types of things. What have you witnessed from your point of view about our justice system and about the criminal case system right now, just having gone through this?
So I've seen several places where this could have been prevented. First, it could have been prevented if they would have recorded his interrogation. If you look at the stats of false confessions, almost all the time, the false confessions were not recorded. Almost all the time, they're young people who don't have experience with the police, that don't understand their Miranda rights. So the first is record the conversation. Now, in Tennessee, you're not required to record interrogations. That needs to change.
I was going to say, that's probably something a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, that needs to change. So there's 20 states in the United States that are not required to record interrogations. Tennessee is one of them. What's also shocking, but as Southerners, you're probably not going to be surprised, when you look at the map of the 20 states, it's the South. The South doesn't have to record interrogations. Why? I don't know. I don't know if we want to go there today, but I don't like that, and that could have changed. When Andrew confessed, the three things he confessed to did not match the scene. So the detectives had the opportunity to say, hold on, you confessed to hitting him on the back of the head, second-story apartment 2 weeks ago. But we know he was hit on the front of the head. There is no second story, and it was 2 months ago. So they could have stopped right there and said, this isn't matching. And the prosecutor could have stopped right there and said, hey, guys, go investigate more. This isn't matching. So Mulroy did an excellent job yesterday accepting accountability for the wrong that has been done, and he is moving swiftly, I believe, to correct it. But we all need to realize that this could have been prevented.
And so it's our job as media, right, to inform. It is quickly becoming your job as a podcaster to inform. You know, some podcasters entertain, some inform, some educate, right? What role do you think we all play in helping tell the stories of people who can't speak for themselves?
I think we become their voice. I mean, I think that the family that's sitting off to the side, I think Tamiri and I think their mother, Flora, doesn't have the voice that can reach hundreds of thousands of people. And I think that when you have that opportunity and you do have that voice, look at what you can do.
Yeah. Tamiri, how thankful are you for Miss Stephanie, as you call her? How faithful is the family?
So thankful. So thankful because if she wouldn't did what she did, we wouldn't be here today. Because like she said, people don't care. If she would have never got herself involved, I haven't heard no one talk about the case. Mm-hmm. But now that it's public, that, you know, he's finna get released, everyone's talking about it.
Do you hope that this case helps people talk about other cases that may be in a similar situation? Because unfortunately, this probably isn't the only case that has question marks around it, right?
Yeah. Yes, I do. I hope that, you know, I think it's not just a problem in Memphis. Wrongful convictions are a nationwide problem. But I think that justice review units like the one that Lorna McCluskey runs here in Memphis are in almost every major city. But I think that there needs to be more attention paid to stories like this. And I think that, you know, the reason that I put it into a podcast where it's more of a true crimey kind of story that you would watch on Netflix, it feels like a documentary. I wanted to make it entertainment without exploiting, because I want listeners to be drawn in and then at the end feel like, whoa, wait a minute, I can do something. So I hope that's the message that comes across.
Tamiri, as a young man in this city who has lived this, unfortunately, what message would you have for, like, city officials, prosecutors, district attorneys who maybe could help other situations like this? Would you have anything to say to some of those types of city officials?
Pay attention to all the facts. Don't just go off of a confession. Just pay attention to the facts.
Now that you're getting closer and closer to getting your father home, can you talk about how it felt? Because off camera, we had this conversation that you guys didn't know there was going to be a press conference yesterday, right? So how did it feel when you heard that announcement from DA Steve Mulroy about your father?
It made me feel good inside because, like, somebody got to take accountability for what they messed up. So I gladly thank him for taking that responsibility.
What about you, Stephanie? You've been working on this for so long, and then to kind of hear on the backside that
I know,
you know, hey, this announcement. What was your thoughts when you saw that announcement coming out?
Well, so I was shocked because we had gone in and played Sarah's confession to Andrew the week before Christmas, but I had no idea Steve Mulroy was going to make an announcement like he did yesterday. I got the notification, I think, just like everybody else did. And I had no plans to release the last half of my podcast. But when he made that announcement yesterday, I wanted the world to know the end of the story. Yeah. And so I released the podcast yesterday. So we had quite a day yesterday.
Yeah, I can only imagine. For both of you, we'll start with you, Tamarian. How does it feel knowing that the person who actually committed this crime is now facing charges? So your father's not just getting out, he's getting exonerated of a crime he did not commit. How does that make you feel?
Good. Made me feel good. And I'm actually glad that they caught the person that actually did it, because we don't know what that person did in these 18 years. I'm just glad they're facing the consequences that they need to face.
Yeah.
Stephanie, what about you? I mean, same question. Not to put because I don't think this doesn't end until he's home.
Right. It's not
Like,
over yet.
The announcement is great, and everybody loves
Right.
to hear what's coming forward, but nothing's over till he's home.
Right.
So, but how does it make you feel knowing that there are charges being filed against somebody who actually committed the crime?
Well, incredible, because it's incredibly rare. I mean, I've spoken to many defense attorneys, many justice lawyers, and it is incredibly, what they'll say, 1 in a million, that somebody gets out and they actually go after the real killer. So it's amazing that it's happened.
Good. What happens next for the family? Is there a time frame on when we believe Andrew will be home? Has there been any discussion about that with Steve Mulroy or the district attorney's office?
Not yet. It seems a little gray to us. We haven't been filled in. I would love for the family to be filled in more than they have been. But certainly it feels like they are speeding up the process, expediting the process. Steve Mulroy had mentioned usually things like this take years, but in the same sentence, he said we are expediting this. Andrew has a hearing coming up soon, and my hope is the judge that day will rule from the bench and release Andrew that day.
What's that going to make you guys feel like if that doesn't happen, though? Like, Tamarian, like, what happens if you get to that hearing and it is still taking? I mean, what do you guys do as a family? How do you handle that?
We can't get discouraged, because this legal stuff takes time. It's a process. So now that we know it's a process, we can't get discouraged.
Just got to wait it out and hope it works out quickly.
Yes, sir.
Are you planning on reaching out to the district attorney's office and maybe trying to get a timeline of when the family, because the family needs those answers.
They need to know.
After all this time, they need to know when they can expect Andrew to be home. Are you planning on reaching out and having those conversations?
I wasn't until you said something, and so maybe I will. Because again, I think if I'm not, who will? Certainly Andrew's attorney could, but he may not know. So yes, as their advocate, I will reach out and try to get more answers.
This one will be for both of you as well. We kind of spoke a little bit about it earlier, but if you had, one message to the system, not a person, but to the system itself about changes, what would that message be to anybody, anybody who's in that judicial system listening? What kind of changes, what change would you love to see them make so that this doesn't happen to another family?
I would like them to, like I said, follow the facts. And don't just be in a rush to get the case over with and just ready to convict someone. Actually do your job and follow the case and the facts that's in the case.
Stephanie, after going through all this, what's your message to the system and the people in power ultimately in the system?
It seems simple, and I've learned so much from Tamarian over the last year because he puts it in such an eloquent way. Follow the facts.
Yeah.
If they would have investigated more, what would have happened? But I think one easy thing to implement, start recording interrogations.
Yeah.
Start recording all interrogations, period.
Yeah. There's a lot of information, and people can get the entire story on the podcast. Where do they find your podcast if they want to trace the story, if they want to go from beginning to end?
Yeah. So the podcast is called Everything They Missed, and it's anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere. And you can also find episodes on YouTube, and on the YouTube channel, it's the Stephanie Tinsley, but you can also find it at Everything They Missed on YouTube. And I like YouTube particularly because you get to see pictures along with the podcast of the family and interviews that I've done, and it really brings everything to life.
Has Andrew had a message, given you a message to give to people or anything once he found out that this was happening? Have you talked to him? Obviously you have, but what's his message been to the people?
So I talked to him last week, and I won't ruin it because he is the last line of the show.
Okay.
And he does have a message that comes from his heart, and he's ready to come home.
Awesome. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for your time. Mary, thank you so much for coming out and speaking. I know it's not easy because it's an emotional subject for sure, and something I know the family feels very deeply. So really, really excited to hear that a man who was wrongfully convicted is going to be coming home. I will ask for you to keep us updated on the process and the plan as you talk to his attorney and the district attorney and people like that, so we know a timeline of when we can expect him to be home.
Yep.
Fair enough?
Will do.
All right. Again, one more time, thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Tamarian, for joining us on this special edition of ABC24 Plus as we dove deeper into the case of Andrew Hayes, who was wrongfully convicted and as now will be exonerated and sent home. We're still waiting on a timeline from that from officials here in Memphis, but another person has been charged in that case, so he has officially been exonerated of committing that murder. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on our very next podcast. Have a great rest of your day.